Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Medtech Impact Podcast, where you get to hear from leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of medical technologies. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And we're your hosts of the show. And today we have Dr. Geetha Manjunath, the founder of Niramai, joining us. Geetha, thank you so much. It's so great to see you again.
Super to see you, Kyle, Richard. Hi.
Great to see you.
Well, let's get right into it, Geetha. Tell everyone, who are you? Where are you from? Tell us your story and how you founded Niramai, and then, of course, get into your technology for us.
Sure. First of all, thanks a lot for running our story on your podcast. I am Geetha, founder and CEO of a startup called Niramai. I'm basically from Bangalore, south of India, and basically I call myself accidental entrepreneur, a techie turned entrepreneur. And here's my story. I did my engineering. I've always been passionate about science and engineering. I saw a computer when I was a school kid and going into an exhibition, and I was so curious to know how it works. And I said, I'm going to choose engineering in computer science. So that's what just made me choose that. And then I did very well, thanks to my good teachers. And then I always wanted to do something new, like innovative. Handling technical challenges is like fun to me, right? Solving tough problems means I used to get more kick out of it, right? So I went on to do masters in engineering again in one of the top institutes in India called Indian Institute of Science, and again that was great. I did pretty well, and then I joined a research institute which was building India's first supercomputer as a young research scientist, and I learned a lot. And then I went on to join Hewlett-Packard Labs when they were just starting research in India. So that was great fun because I used to learn a lot, traveling, of course, around the world, and also interacting with international researchers, thinking about research differently, not for publishing papers or something, but really how can we use research for innovation, doing and solving some problem on the ground. Then as my PhD, and then finally I was at Xerox Research heading AI research for them. And so that is when things turned. I was happy, sort of solving very interesting problem, had a big, good team, and so on. And one of my very close cousin sister, Bharti, got detected with breast cancer. She was 41, and she directly detected stage 4 cancer. She got operated. Within 6 months. I lost her. So that was a huge turning point for me. Like, we were so close, very good best friends, and suddenly I lost her. As luck would have, or unluck would have, another family member also got detected with breast cancer within 6 months of this news, and she was 38 and she had a small son as well. And this two things, one after the other, like really shook me. And I said, what am I trying to do? Trying to use technology to solve so many other problems I felt were irrelevant at the time. And I said, we have to solve this problem. And started a small research project using my exploratory budget to see if we can use imaging, what it is like, and so on. And after about 6 to 10 months of this research within the organization, I said, I cannot do this as yet another project, and this I have to really put more time into it. So I quit my job and started Niramai. On the ground, it's been 6 years now, and I'm so happy I took that decision.
That's first and foremost, it's always tough to hear about someone losing a loved one, and we're very sorry. But it oftentimes takes sometimes unfortunate experiences like that, right, that motivate and inspire you to selflessly go and do something that will ultimately impact everyone's lives and people that are impacted by breast cancer. So remarkable. You know, it's interesting because you going back to kind of your early, you know, how you kind of got into engineering, I guess, like, what about like your family background? Was there any kind of inspiration from parents or anyone else that kind of, you know, was in that industry that you kind of saw firsthand and learned from that maybe inspired you to go in that direction? Or was that just yourself, like, in your interest there? Like,
Definitely my father played a huge role in trying to love science, you know, really made me love science and fixing things. You know, I remember as a very small girl, you know, my father is like, you know, if the tap is leaking and so on, usually we have a lot of help in India, but he was like, I'm not going to call anybody, I'm going to fix it. You know, everything, he used to find the tools and fix things. You know, the radio doesn't work, you know, open it up, there used to be huge box radios. So that made me curious. Whenever he opened up and he used to call me and I used to peep into it, what are these wires and so on. So anything that I saw, I wanted to understand how it works. And this kind of curiosity building is definitely, you know, I owe it to my father. And so he was called as repairman in our family, literally. So that's sort of how, you know, he was not an engineer, but he was always thinking like an engineer, I would say. And he also told me every time that, you know, I got into this sort of, I got into the best medical school and best engineering school in India when I did my whatever graduate undergrad. Then he just told me, follow what you feel you want to do. And I told you, I already started loving computers and I wanted to know how it works. So I just chose engineering. So I think family makes a huge difference in trying to first give you decision power, like, you know, really choosing what you love rather than choosing what others think is the best thing to do, right? You know, I think that I really owe my father. My mother is also a very independent lady. She was more into music and teaching music and so on. But yeah, I've seen her to be an independent lady. So I don't differentiate ladies, male, female, you know, that's that confidence I got from my mom.
Very cool. And has that continued when you've been in work in terms of finding mentors or people who you've looked to inspire you as you develop through your career?
Yeah, during it's just you know, I was fully into the subject. You know, I was not working for marks or grades, and it was more like, let me understand, and that was the thought process. And of course, I had wonderful teachers who were able to go into the depth of it when there was a question or trying to relate, let's say, a mathematical equation to a real problem and so on. So those kind of, you know, teachers played a huge role in my way of studying, I would say, you know, not study for grades, but study for really understanding every line of what you're learning. So that, I think, was another big factor.
And how have you found this transition moving from, you know, working for big corporate companies into then now you being responsible and starting and running a business?
Yeah, I mean, that was actually first 1 or 2 months was like a huge difference. I did feel, first of all, what a brand like HP and Xerox can do to a person. You're known as more like you're recognized and identified with the company than like yourself. So when you like, I used to be called for very like big talks and all as, you know, lab director, and suddenly like people, oh, okay, you've left the company. Fine. Do you know anybody else who can do this talk? I said, what? I'm the same person. So I found this brand, you know, being so important to be recognized. And that was one. Of course, financially, suddenly I lost all my salary. So I used to go in the Ubers of the world rather than sort of, you know, have a chauffeur-driven car. So that was a little bit getting to the truth. And after that, you know, it was more the fun of being, you know, completely independent and making the decisions much faster. And, you know, I could see that we were moving at least 10 times faster than what we could, you know, within a big corporate environment. Not really about developing products, of course we can, but also it's the focus and ability to take decisions almost on a like a minute to minute, if not hours to hours. So that was all real fun. Every second of the last 6 years, I've really enjoyed, I would say, every bit.
Now, we probably have everyone on the edge of their seats here. Let's talk about Niramai and your technology.
Sure. So let me first start with the problem. The problem really is, of course, breast cancer, and more so the late detection of breast cancer. Early detection of breast cancer is so critical to save lives. A stage 1 detection of breast cancer can have 90% survival rate, whereas a stage 2, stage 3 plus detection is 10% survival rate. It's really flipping the chances of survival. This is a big problem. And today, breast cancer continues to be the top cancer of incidence as well as mortality in 159 countries, which is huge. 684,000 women die every year because of this disease. And most of them can be saved. Because breast cancer is completely curable. The only reason they're not able to live longer is because of late detection. Of course, the standard modalities for detecting breast cancer, such as mammography, breast ultrasound, these are actually expensive equipment for resource-constrained settings like India, where every person is not really screened every year. Like in some countries, they're screened every year after 45 years and so on. Here, we cannot afford it, because it's a very expensive equipment. We have huge population and it's widely spread. And so it has to be accessible as well. And because of that, most people detect their cancer by hand, which is accidentally finding a lump and then going to the doctor, which is almost 25 millimeters in size, which is stage 2 plus, directly. So that is the main reason. And also, the current method like mammography is based on X-rays, which means it's trying to find density differences to find cancer. Whereas so many women have dense breasts where you cannot see this density difference. So it misses many cancers in dense breasts, which is mostly all women under 45 years of age and about 50% of women above 45 having dense breasts. So this is a second technical problem, right? Which is not just limited to India and countries like India, but it's a global problem that is we are seeing. And the third one is really about the experience of doing a test. If you want ladies to do the test every year, it better be simple, not like disrobing in front of others, somebody pulling it, putting X-rays and pain and compression. So that is what it is great, but it can be better. In terms of the experience. So these are the three main problems. And to address all of these, we have come up with a completely new method of detecting breast cancer, where we just measure the temperature variations on the chest using a thermal sensor, like an infrared imaging device, non-contact, just keep the device 3 feet from you and just measure the temperature. And our innovative algorithms to analyze this temperature distribution converts temperature to cancer report. And that's the main innovation we have come up with. We call it thermal analytics, thermalytics. And with this combination, we now can detect cancer in women of all age groups or breast densities in a much, much more affordable manner with like 1/10 or 1/20th the cost of the equipment and simply skilled people doing the test, as opposed to like very sophisticated, medically proficient people doing the scanning and interpretation. And most importantly, the experience of doing this test is what I call as changing room experience. The lady enters a room, she closes the door and she removes her clothes and sits in front of this device. And nobody's inside, not even a technician. And cool air is blown for about 10 minutes and she goes out, her report will be ready. So it's as simple as that. And this no touch, no pain and no radiation experience makes many, many more women do this, with word of mouth and regularly, go for this test as well. So all of this has made us really believe that it is a breakthrough in cancer detection, which can save many, many lives, not just in developed countries, but also in so many resource-constrained countries, particularly.
Yeah, it's an incredible mission you're targeting, and yeah, we can't commend you enough for what you're doing in this area. I wondered if you could refer to how you were inspired with this approach, because I think this approach with mammography has been around for a long time, and what you're bringing is fairly novel, I would say. So, what was the the ideation behind that?
Yeah, sure. So I go back to the the cause of why we started this startup. Bharti was 42 years of age, and another close family members, Lakshmi, was 38 years. So I asked the doctors, why are such young age we are losing? And both of them have had mammograms, right? And if many of us do go. And then I was told that because they had dense breasts, they were not able to, detect it. So then I was thinking, sort of, why use X-rays to detect cancer? Are there other modalities? So we read, started looking at other ways of looking into the body. And coincidentally, we were working on multispectral imaging with a multispectral camera, which can actually take images in all different wavelengths, if you will. And I was also discussed with one of the imaging experts to see, have you ever seen like anybody else doing it? He did point out, Mr. Mesta pointed me to some thermal imaging papers. And so that would definitely help me to look at that. And because we had this multispectral camera, we started taking images of a couple of breast cancer patients. Then we figured that there is a considerable differentiability in the infrared spectrum compared to the others. And these papers also showed that people have tried this before, and maybe some of them are still using it. That is how we started. And then I saw that, FDA had a lot of negative about why use thermal imaging. It's not accurate. So I started reading about it and realized that there is no systematic study comparing. And also there was so much subjectivity, every person now has to the doctor has to look at 400,000 temperature points, and the person is looking at it more in color. So there's a lot of these sort of errors I could make out. And then I said, this is the exact place where you can use artificial intelligence. It's almost like hammer, but the nail was matching. So we said, okay, so why don't we try it? And that's how, I started off. And then it's interesting. Of course, we had to fine tune the approach and several things along the way. But yeah, here we are.
And you've made incredible progress. I mean, not just from starting with this unique approach, but I think in terms of validating the sensitivity and the improvements in the accuracy of this approach as well.
Absolutely. We have 100% sensitivity in screening population so far, touch wood, and we have about 8% false positive rate, which is 92% specificity, which is one of the kind of best, I guess. So confident to go to the market with this.
What's really neat too is your experiences of living in India and growing up in a country with such a large population, right? To your point, it's hard to see everyone, right? And you think about, I obviously don't really know enough about the processes and the steps in mammography, but based on what you've described here, if a patient can just simply go in a room, right, and remove their clothes and have that image taken, and then they're on their way, it sounds like it's a lot faster too. So you've got that ability to address this a lot earlier. You're saving time. You're maybe saving capital costs to the hospital. You're seeing more patients. It's fascinating technology. Is this more of a software? I'm sure the audience is probably, wondering, are you a software company? Are you hardware? Are you both? How does this, how does it work?
Yeah, good question. So we are basically a software company, I would say. Like we just developed the software to convert temperature distribution to cancer report, because there are several people doing thermal cameras, especially due to COVID, many more companies are building these thermal cameras and also high resolution thermal cameras. So
which is great though, right? Because if they're innovating those thermal cameras because of, the pandemic, it's like, well, that technology is only getting better for you, right?
Absolutely.
Cool.
They're becoming better, they're becoming cheaper and available everywhere. So we didn't want to kind of redo that part. There are many people doing that, and they know that well, and we know this well, the software part. So so we use off-the-shelf thermal cameras. Of course, we say it has to follow a bunch of specifications and qualify our kind of test for validity. And then once that is done, we hook it. Anybody can actually buy this camera off the shelf, and then we train them how to take images of the breast, and the technician essentially, and they take these images and upload it to our cloud. It's a cloud hosted software as well. Anybody can go to thermalytics.com and upload these 5 images. Of course, you need to have the username, password. And once you do that, click, you can generate a report. in order to make it more medical grade, the report that is generated is automatically sent to an expert for the medical unit. Every medical unit will have a bunch of experts. They're basically radiologists, oncologists, gynecologists, and they will do a quick review and put their signature before it is handed over to the end user as a PDF report, like emailed to the patient. So of course, if the hospital has a good radiologist, they could, we can just quickly have a chat with the radiologist to make sure they understand our report. Otherwise, we have a panel of radiologists who can sign the report as well. So any even private a physician or a gynecologist or OB/GYN person can start giving this test to all her patients, right? Even if she's not qualified to sign the report, we have qualified individuals who will sign and hand it over, right? So that is the mode we are working on. And it's a pay-per-use model as well, sorry.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess though, like a big thing is this learning curve, right? Is how easy can this technology be adopted in a doctor's office? So it sounds like though, based on the technology that really already exists and is only getting better from a thermal imaging standpoint, and then your software, it sounds like it's also removing though a lot of that guesswork, for the doctor, making it a lot easier to identify, potential cancer. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are actually, in fact, you said the right thing. There are a few, thermographers who are using this thermal imaging in multiple countries, and they're all coming to us saying, like, I don't want to guess anymore, right? I want to sort of start using yours because yours is, you have a US FDA clearance for one of our device and also European CE. So they want to have like more certified tools to actually generate the report. So that's basically low-hanging fruit, though we did not intend that to be the target segment, but they are like the first ones to adopt. Having said that, this can also be used in like regular hospitals. In addition to mammogram, if they already have a mammogram, and in many countries they don't have a mammogram, it can be used as a screening or pre-screening, right? Only positive patients who are found to be high risk with this technology need to be sent to a diagnostic workup. The diagnostic workup could be a 3D mammogram or an ultrasound or an MRI, which will identify and just to make sure that that's really cancer, with biopsy and so on.
And you referenced there countries now approaching you, which is fantastic to hear. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the number of patients you've managed to reach even within India and then internationally as well.
So, so far in India, we have screened more than 95,000 women. In multiple countries, it's the test is installed in 150 plus hospitals and diagnostic centers. So we have a very small sales team at this point in time, like six members. Mostly we are focusing on trying to find partners who can help us scale, because they already have network of hospitals and so on. It's much easier, because what I realize is that healthcare selling is mostly trust-based, and it's very much relationship-based. So if you have actually bought from a particular company and you're happy with that, and it's kind of working, you tend to go to the same institution again, and not just in India, in many places. So we want to sort of work with top healthcare institutions to actually take this to market. So, but yeah, we have about 150 plus and 95,000 women screened here. As you mentioned, we are getting a lot of interest from outside India as well. So now we have launched in Kenya, UAE, that is the MENA region, Middle East. We'll be launching in Philippines next week, Nepal, and a few more countries in discussion, where we have identified distributors to take this to those countries. And so outside India, I guess we've done about 1,000. We've also done a lot of initial pilots in Turkey, Sweden, and starting to do in UK. We've just launched a clinical study in Arizona as well. And a couple of doctors in US have started using it already.
Amazing.
And is it approved here in the US? I might have missed that.
Yes, it is approved as a full, AI-based device in Europe with a CE mark. In US, we have a variant of the device where there are no AI, like we do not say whether it's cancer or not. We're not allowed to say, but we can mark the area of high thermal activities. And a radiologist can look at that even alongside mammography to make a decision. So in the US, we call it SMILE 100, which is for adjunct usage at this point in time.
Okay. What you said AI, you're not talking artificial intelligence, are you?
Yes, so that's a good point. So the main innovation in this is machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms, which look at this 400,000 temperature points and identifies areas of high thermal activity, high vascular activity, which look like cancer, or which basically have a lot of irregular mitotic activities. So the AI is the core. And in fact, our AI algorithms have resulted in 30 granted international patents, out of which 11 are granted in the US. So it's a very unique set of algorithms that we've developed.
Okay, cool. I wanted to make sure I was hearing that correctly,
Thanks
because
for
of
asking.
course, yeah, no, absolutely. I think, just in general, we're obviously hearing about AI everywhere, especially in medical device. So it's just neat to hear how your technology is utilizing AI, and it makes a ton of sense, right? I mean, after so many images and so much data that's being collected, and then the effort to help with early detection, I mean, it sounds like it could be a, incredible tool that you can harness to provide better outcomes. So really neat. Glad you shared that.
It's so true, Cal. I mean, you're truly pushing the boundaries, not just with, I think, with the detection and screening, but also in terms of like having technology approved in AI by the FDA, because that's an evolving area. So how have you found that process going through with the FDA and getting that approval?
Yeah, I mean, the experience with US FDA has been really learning, I would say, educational. Initially, everybody says like US FDA is bad, they're very stringent. But I've seen, of course, initially I went with that thought process, honestly. But May 2020, I remember the first like face-to-face or like a Zoom interview with a full panel. And I was so impressed by their knowledge and the ability to think risk. It's not easy to find out where things can go wrong. I mean, it's very difficult to identify all loopholes, and so good. Like every question is saying, how are you going to handle this? And they were catching like where things can go wrong very, very quickly. That was very interesting. And each of these questions made me think that, okay, this is exactly how they will not tell you how to solve it. They will tell you what is the problem, which is very good, because you can go back to the work and get the next one. So basis that, we went back and submitted 2-3 submissions. They have what's called pre-sub, which is like free, complimentary sort of way of reviewing and giving feedback. I'm really very, very thankful to US FDA on the whole review committee to have given us multiple hints, and as well as identified places where we had to fix. Because obviously when we first said, I said, oh, why don't you use this with, before mammogram and all of that, I was like full. Then they told me these are the things. So now we have done clinical studies to, plug those and show that it actually works. And also it's more like a stepwise process. First, you start with the low risk usage, which is like used along with mammography and only for marking and so on. And then slowly we can build evidence in US and then go back for a higher claim, I would say, on the device itself. So it's been very interesting. I think it's a journey. We believe we have some more devices to get approved before going full on AI, automated AI for breast screening. It will take time. Yeah, but yeah, we are on the job.
Yeah, that's great. And what does that next level look like for Niramai, and kind of where you're at today, and maybe over the next 5 years? Like, where do you see the company and technology going?
Right. So the two throngs or directions. One is, how do we make thermalytics based, automated, radiation free, affordable, accessible screening test available for everyone? Every lady on earth is what I keep telling my team. We have to reach every lady on earth because they need it, because we need to identify cancer early, stop deaths due to breast cancer. This is the scale aspect of it. It's not easy, I know, but we try to do our best. We collaborate and get to that. Second thing is, while developing this and discussing with a lot of these expert clinicians, we realized that though we want to solve breast cancer, looks like this can address many other healthcare issues. Not just breast cancer, other type of cancers, not just cancer, maybe other type of vascular issues and skeletal-muscular issues like pain and identifying the source of pain and so on. So that has been an interesting revelation. And we just started, because we can't do everything. So it's like even further down the years, we really see that potentially with collaboration, this can become a different and a new method of detecting abnormalities in the body. So both the scale in adoption and product and increased scope in the products would be two main direction. I think we can hope to move.
Incredible. And something you mentioned about getting your FDA approval. I mean, that I was reflecting back. That was when you were just going through your time after, certainly around the time of when you'd been involved with the Impact program here in the US. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how that had helped you through that process and just building those relationships.
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, it was wonderful to be selected as the top 10 medical devices qualifying for that round of M2DT Impact program. Just the fact that we made it was super good for us, super good feeling, because we are coming from a small, like a small startup coming from a small city in a small country, like far away and all of that. And ability to make it till then through multiple rounds, the way, you and the rest of the jury people actually selected us, it was wonderful. Just that sort of, yes. And then I think we had this 12-week program. Every week was such a learning. You got experts who told us a lot about reimbursement codes, and every country is different. And we learned a lot about that design, how to think about sales differently. I think there was a lot of mentoring that was happening in the last 12 weeks. And then the grand finale, I guess, where we had, 3 grilling sessions with jury panels. It was amazing, the type of questions they were asking, and every time you answer that question, you get that thrill. Oh, I did it, right? And so many panel members came out, congratulated us, and shared, and it just so inspirational and more motivating to solve bigger problems. And also it was a great networking experience, right? We met so many people, which definitely we wouldn't have met. I wouldn't have met at all sitting in India. In the audience, and I still am connected to many of them, and they are connecting me to resources which we may require in future as well. So thank you very much for running that program, and I would really, somebody is listening and say, go definitely apply. You need to be there.
Amazing.
Well, it's kind of neat too, because it's a special opportunity as well to do something with a company like Hologic. I mean, obviously a leader in women's health, and for them to be a part of the program, that's got to be an incredible opportunity for you, and with full of tremendous value, and a lot of fun to be able to align your technology in women's health, something that's so important to a big company like Hologic. What was that like?
Yeah, that was also good. We had mentors from Hologic asking us the tough question, mostly about the market and, where does it fit in the clinical pathway and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it was very important to get a corporate view of it as well. And so that really, really helped as well. Thank you.
Sure. Something I want to touch on, just to look back, and you mentioned this in the beginning around, that transfer from you going from corporate into startup. And so this idea that you have to build your own brand from an early stage. And so it's just really interesting as we're kind of like thinking about, you going forward, how important that's been to get to where you are now. So yeah, just, talking about how you've gone out and built an audience and really engaged your community, because from the outside, I think you've done an incredible job. The coverage.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's so fulfilling. You said it right. Actually, I was on a non-disclosure. I am still on a non-disclosure to sort of say that we started off there. And so we never used the brand when we started. So we really have built Niramai, and wherever I go, like when they identify Niramai, they say, I've heard about it. It feels very good, and thanks to all of you. The media has been very kind and promoting it. We were on BBC News, CNBC, and all of that. And so, yeah, people are able to relate to the name Niramai, as well as relate breast cancer to Niramai. So I keep getting calls from people who are suspecting something and then say, okay, can I ask you a question about my health and so on. So we have almost, at least in India, become synonymous to breast cancer and how we can fight that. So it's very, very fulfilling. Thank you.
Well, it's incredible to see everything you've done, because I mean, the biggest thing to me is what an inspiration you are personally as a leader.
Thank you so much. But I think we really have a very long way to go. We have just done the initial piece, and really look forward to collaborators who want to take this to every corner of the world. And really it works. We've done extensive clinical testing with standard of care, and we're open to doing further clinical testing. If you don't believe it, see it work.
Well, one question that we always like to ask at the end is, for anyone who's, going to maybe embark on a career in medtech, what's kind of your biggest tip or recommendation for anyone that might end up leaving a full-time career like you did to embark on such a really probably one of the most the biggest challenges you could ever embark on in life? What's the biggest tip you have for them?
So I would say two things. One is, please be patient. You're serving patients, and patience is very, very important. So, because you feel you have to make an impact immediately, but it does take time. Because just because you developed a solution, doctors are not going to adopt. Obviously, end users will not going to adopt. There is it has long gestation period. You need to go through don't take any shortcuts, right? You need to go through the regulatory and go through the clinical, and definitely it's so fulfilling to see it work. The end of the day, seeing somebody somebody call you and says, you saved my life because of your device, it's really worth it. So definitely do it, but have patience. Second, don't be afraid. Initially you will not know everything, but it's okay. I think the ecosystem is so good that as long as you know what you know and what you don't know, you will find mentors and partners to work on things which you don't know, and you can definitely make it. You should definitely take the plunge. If you want to solve a problem which is dear to you, things will align. That's what I would say.
That's great. Well, Richard, any closing remarks today?
Well, it's just been an absolute pleasure to have you on. In terms of people who want to follow you, I know you're very active on LinkedIn. I think just before this, you mentioned that you had another guest spot, sharing the Niramai story. People can go and find more information on the Niramai website, but would highly recommend watching and following everything that happens, because again, you're a truly inspiring person. I'm delighted we get to spend time with you today.
Thank you so much, Richard, for your kind words. And it's been a great pleasure to have this conversation with Richard and the super energetic Kyle as well. And so thanks a lot for taking our story to many, many more people. And again, we are open to collaboration. We cannot do this alone. Really together, let's stop deaths due to breast cancer.
Well, what's the best way people can get a hold of you?
Send me an email. I am at geetha@niramai.com, geetha@niramai.com. You can remember it as niram.ai if you like.
Nice. All right. Well, that inbox is going to start blowing up in a second. I'm telling you right now, you're going to get a lot of people reaching out. This was an incredible story. It was so nice to have you on the show. So I think that's it. Again, just incredible, Geetha. It was so amazing having you on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate all of you joining us today. Once again, this is the MedTech Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And until next time,
keep innovating.